standing here in the bright sunshine, looking out over the vast ocean. Those days in London seem like a dream. But I do miss my time in England's vast capital. You know, he's flourished into a truly wonderful lawyer. I've no doubt that at this very moment, he's fighting some noble cause in court. Forgive me for taking so long to come to visit you. My life has been such a whirlwind since I returned. And no one could have predicted what has happened. Just 2 months after arriving home. So I came here today to ask something of you. Tomorrow, I shall be standing in court. For the only time in my life. As a lawyer. So please, I ask for your guidance. Kazuma-sama.
August 8:26 a.m. Supreme Court of Judicature, Defendants, Antechamber 3. Here I am again after 9 months, the Supreme Court of Judicature of Japan. I feel so nervous, but I must steel my nerves and find a way to compose myself.
Ah, good. You're here. It doesn't do for a lawyer to be late.
Oh, yes, good morning, sir.
I hardly recognize you. You cut a fine figure, counsel. But you look as white as a sheet, and those white eyes aren't doing you any favors either.
Oh dear. The truth is, I am so incredibly nervous I feel utterly nauseated. I almost wish that I'd never been born.
Goodness, not the sort of thing a father hopes to hear from his daughter, I must say.
Eugene Mikotoba, professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University. A man who earlier in his life traveled to Great Britain to study the latest advances in forensic medical science. And of course, my brilliant father. Excuse me? Who is it? What? Another one? Would I be correct in thinking that you are to be my lawyer in court today? Yes, that's right, miss. Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to represent me. I swear on my life. It's a complete fabrication. This whole thing. Rei Membami. Rei Membami. Membami. Oh, Rei Membami. Okay. Rei Membami, born the same year as I, and my greatest friend. Though unusual for a woman in our time, she works at the university research laboratory helping my father, and sadly she is the defendant in today's trial, accused of committing a truly awful murder. Are you feeling alright? Since we started talking, you seem, well, to have become a little flushed. Oh my, it's just that, you look so gallant and dashing. Sorry, and when I fall under your intense gaze, it makes me feel rather bashful. Goodness, I don't think she knows. She hasn't realized who I am.
It would seem our little plan for this trial is going to work.
Oh, what do you mean, Professor Mikotoba?
If even your best friend can see through the disguise, I think we can relax.
Disguise? Yes, I've never tried dressing this way before, of course, so I wasn't sure how convincing it would be. But this does make me feel a little relieved, as you say, Father. Father-ru? What? Nani? Is that you, Susato? I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner, Rei. No! What are you doing? What's going on? What? That varsity uniform, that varsity cable, that varsity badge. Look at you! You look for other word just like a student of the Imperial Human University. A male student. I'm so glad you think so. It means all my preparations have been worthwhile. I woke at 4 this morning to make a start. But I don't understand. Why are you dressed like that? Well, you see...
It was the only way. The only way she would be permitted into the Supreme Court to take on your defense in this trial.
My defense? Never before in my life have I felt so frustrated at having been born into this body. Courts in Japan are barred to women. We're not even allowed to set foot inside the courtroom, despite the fact that the laws of the land apply to all people, male and female alike. But women are forbidden. Just for today, I'll be leaving my true self at the courtroom door, so that I can act as your lawyer. Oh, Susato, you'd go to such ranks for me? Of course. You are my greatest friend. I just worry that I shan't be the lawyer you deserve. Oh no, I have a complete faith in you. Rei... It is so strange though. I mean, you're such an accomplished judicial assistant already. And yet just because you're a woman, what a wicked reason. I mean, why shouldn't you be allowed in court? You're so gallant and dashing. Rei, please don't look at me like that, with those flushed cheeks and darting eyes. Oh, I'm sorry, it's just, you really look so dashing. Yes, you mentioned that once or twice.
You should be pleased. It means you look convincing as a man.
I am pleased, I think. It has certainly helped to bolster my confidence today. Rei, you're managing to put on a brave face in all this, but I can see through it. I've noticed how your shoulders are slumped and how you're trembling ever so slightly. Susato, you do believe in me, don't you? I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I mean, murder. Of course. You have nothing to worry about. Your conscience is perfectly clean. Isn't that right? Yes it is. Perfectly clean. I have... Oh. Alright, sorry about that. So, where were we? I have absolutely no doubt in my mind about your innocence, which is why I'll stand by you until the bitter end in this trial. Whatever happens, I will always be on your side, because that is what it means to be a defense lawyer. That means so much to me, Susato.
Defendant, Counsel, court is about to begin. Proceed to the courtroom at once. You should go in at once, Rei. If you are late, the judge won't hesitate to pronounce you guilty.
Oh. Stand aside? I don't think I've ever seen her run so fast.
Well, Susato, you have certainly surprised your father. Going to such lengths to be admitted into the courtroom, and with no prior experience of being a lawyer.
There was simply no other way. That is all there is to it. But father, you haven't told her, have you? I mean, I am right in assuming that Rei doesn't know how it came to this?
Yes, quite right. I have kept that information from her. It would only worry her if she found out that no other lawyer would agree to take her case. I didn't want to burden her with that.
And is it true, the reason why every other lawyer is refusing to take the case? Is it really because of who the victim was?
We should be making a move now too. As you know, law isn't my field, but I do what I can to support my student.
Thank you, father. I am Susato Mikotoba, a judicial assistant. 8 months ago, I accompanied the student of law on a study trip to Great Britain, but 2 months ago, due to unforeseen circumstances, I found myself back in Japan. How many times have I wished that he were here, I wonder. Still, I have no choice now but to steel myself for the trial ahead. Wish me luck, Naruhodo-san. So I guess we're not gonna talk about how the reason she went back to Japan was because her father is sick, but now her father is fine? I guess he got over it. Anyway.
This court is now in session to hear the trial of Rei Membami.
The prosecution is fully ready to proceed, Your Excellency.
Defense counsel, are you ready? Yes, Your Excellency. We are ready.
Ready. Ready. Yes. Counsel, according to your registration details, your name is, Yuritaru Naruhodo. Is that correct? Sorry.
Yes, I had to come up with a suitable male name for you for this little venture. So I'm afraid to say I simply put down the first name that sprung to mind.
Well, Counsel. Yes, that's right. That's me.
Yes, I am Ryotaro, he who has vowed to uphold the pride of the great Naruhodo clan.
Ah.
It seems Ryotaro may need to consider how better to uphold his manly act first and not overdo it. And thus, wild eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Just relax and listen.
Naruhodo.
A fresh face in this courtroom, if I'm not mistaken. But the name Naruhodo, would that perchance be?
You may be thinking of Ryusuke Naruhodo, currently in Britain as part of a study program. This is,
his cousin.
That's right. Ryotaro here has been studying in the provinces, but was called to the capital for this trial. I assure you, in matters of law, his knowledge rivals that of any of Tokyo's preeminent lawyers.
Any of them.
Tut. What a pitiful situation. Having been rejected by every lawyer in the capital, the accused has had to call in a country boy.
How dare you! Susato is every bit as gallant and dashing as any of your Tokyo attorneys. I won't have you making fun of her.
Her.
Oh, please be careful, Rei.
What an unrefined tomboy we have here. But I wonder, is your gallant and dashing lawyer up to the challenge of defending you? His wide, skittish eyes very much suggest that he is not.
I am so nervous. Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand what Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, eyes are wont to flit. Fuck.
The case to be heard on this day is a matter of great significance to our national interests. In fact, it would be reasonable to assume that the outcome of this trial may well affect the very future of our empire.
Just like the trial 9 months ago. And yet for proceedings of such importance, we have this unknown yokel but a doc? Dear me.
Perhaps it would be an appropriate moment for me to assess the defense, to determine whether you are sufficiently competent to practice in this courtroom. 9 months ago, when a certain other Naruhodo stood where you're standing now, this same judge tested him as well. And even though he was just a student at the time, not even a pro, he passed the test with flying colors. For a trained and experienced judicial assistant like you, this will be easy. So, Counselor, do you consent to answering some simple questions?
Alright, it is time to prove myself. Yes, Your Excellency, but please, do make them simple.
Very well. To start with, you will state the name of the victim.
Whew, that is simple. I couldn't forget that if I tried.
What's the matter?
Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand something else Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, minds are wont to blank.
It's not surprising, really. It's your first time in this position and in that guise. Even a bright spark like you is but to flicker and falter under a little under the circumstances.
Oh dear, this is a dismal failure.
Don't fret. You need only use the knowledge you have gained as a judicial assistant to overcome the problem.
Of course, the court record. Yes, the answer will be amongst all the key information about the case in the court record.
That's right. Just use the right bumper to open the court record. Then you need to flip to people section with RB. And don't take too long over it. His Excellency is watching you closely.
Alright, check the court record with RB. That's where the information I need will be.
I am waiting, Counsel. What is the name of the victim in this case?
It's obviously... The victim in this case is... Yes! Prosecutor Takutsushi Ouchi.
What?
Why is that triumphant cry of yes? Are you threatening to kill me?
He seems angry. But you're surprised?
Oh. He seems angry.
And you're surprised? Did you consult the court record? You must look through it carefully.
Oh yes, I did, of course. I looked at everyone on file, and I chose the person whose features appeared to be the most deathly.
But I must say, this most unusual methodology of yours leaves me almost speechless. It occurs to me with renewed certainty that reading the information carefully is vitally important. I strongly recommend it.
Oh dear, I simply can't ignore that imploring look. Your Excellency, please allow me to amend my answer.
Very well, I will excuse this incorrect response given your wide-eyed state of panic.
What is the name of the victim in this case, sir? Alright, so we got the post-mortem report. Death after 2 p.m. Trauma to the victim's lung from a knife blade. Only a single wound is identified. Defendant is 16. Remember me. Remembami. Eugene Mikotoba. Giselle Brett. Yep. The victim was...
Yes!
The name of the victim who lost her life in this case is Miss Giselle Brett.
Giselle Brett? A name that will never be forgotten in the courtrooms of our country, I am sure. Correct. And being a member of our empire's judiciary, you will be well aware of the significance of that name. But so, let me pose another simple question. As you know, Miss Brett was a visiting student from the Empire of Great Britain. Why then is her name indelibly associated with our own empire's judicial history? Obviously, you won't have forgotten that case from 9 months ago. But if it's proving hard to recall the final point, everything you need is included in the court record.
Obviously, I still remember. That was the start of everything. Giselle Brett, behind the woman's student persona, was the face of... a victim, obviously.
The victim's role is already taken, Counsel, as you should know.
That answer came with such misguided confidence, I was almost taken in.
I thought it sounded...
I thought it sounded a little odd.
Leave me out of this. Check the court record and find the correct answer to the question of Miss Brett's true identity. You will find it in the people section. That won't do, Counsel. Amend your answer before we have any more victims to contend with.
Yes, of course, Your Excellency. Behind the woman's student persona was the face of...
Yes!
9 months ago, a visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University was killed, and the culprit was Giselle Brett.
Yes, she was a killer.
At the time, our country had just signed a new treaty with the Empire of Great Britain, and it was in the midst of this delicate diplomatic situation that the incident occurred. An Englishman, Dr. John H. Wilson, was shot dead. I believe he was an associate of yours, Professor Mikotoba. Oh, was that the judge talking?
Yes, I was indebted to the man. He'd been my mentor when I went to London to study forensic medicine. Indeed, it was I who invited him here out of Japan as a visiting professor at the university. Naturally, the murder of an Englishman on our soil was a matter the government wished to resolve rapidly.
Indeed it was, which is why a secret trial was conducted here at the Supreme Court. A student of the Imperial Yume University was arrested on suspicion of murder. A second-year English language student by the name of Rinosuke Naruhodo. With the help of his best friend, a student lawyer, the accused conducted his own defense and exposed the despicable crime committed by Miss Giselle Brett. Miss Brett eventually admitted to her crime. However, when questioned about the motive that drove her to take
Dr. Wilson's life? She gave no satisfactory answer before the trial reached its conclusion.
Immediately after the trial, the British government brought its Council of Jurisdiction into play. We were unable to sentence Miss Brett according to our empire's laws. It was decided that she would be removed to Shanghai, China, instead.
Why Shanghai?
There's a British consular court there.
Correct. I oversaw the negotiations personally. The date of her transfer to Shanghai was finally settled upon only last week. All that remained of our empire's obligations was to see the woman safely on board a steamship.
And yet, the very day before her departure, the Englishwoman was killed.
But only the day before. That will do. I am satisfied that the counsel for the defense is sufficiently capable of representing the defendant. Oh. Thank you, Your Excellency. Over the first hurdle. Now, a summary of the incident, if you please. Prosecutor Auchi.
As is your wish, Your Excellency. The repugnant crime took place on the 11th of August in broad daylight. On the outskirts of the imperial capital, under a bright blue sky, at a secluded bathing spot by the sea. The incident occurred inside a small beach hut, erected for bathers to rest or change their clothes. The cause of death was a single stab wound to the posterior abdomen that pierced the victim's lung, an injury which proved fatal. There were two persons alone together in the beach hut at the time of the victim's death, Miss Brett in her bathing attire, and the accused, Rei Membami. Accordingly, there can be no doubt of the accused's guilt, especially when we consider she had a powerful motive. The police arrived rapidly at the scene and promptly arrested the young lady.
Well, that extraordinary description of events leaves me somewhat worse for words, I must say. That is certainly true. The prosecution's summary was full of words that raise an awful lot of questions. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about "You're clearly exaggerating. Powerful motive is a blatant overstatement."
Tut, tut, tut. Is the yokel boy using long words he doesn't fully understand?
I beg your pardon?
No matter. Let us put this to the accused, shall we? Mamami-san, you are a research assistant at the Imperial Yume University, I believe.
Yes, I am. I am working with Professor Mikotoba in his laboratory at the moment.
I can confirm that the defendant is an excellent assistant with a strong sense of responsibility.
Fascinating to hear. Now, another question. Prior to your work with Professor Mikotoba, whose research were you assisting then?
Oh, well, I was studying under Dr. John H. Wilson.
Dr. Wilson? The visiting English professor who was murdered by Miss Brett 9 months ago?
The accused had a deep-seated respect for her former mentor, Dr. Wilson. Is that not true?
Yes, Dr. Wilson was a wonderful man.
Interesting. Then tell the court what deep-seated feelings you had towards the Englishwoman who killed him.
Well, obviously I was filled with hatred for what she'd done. A powerful hatred. Oh no, Rei! Be careful of what you're saying.
The motive was revenge. Plain and simple, Your Excellency.
Well, it was clearly a trap all along.
How wicked of him to use Rei's undying respect for her former mentor against her like that. I must find out more details, and something we can use to bolster our defense. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about... Mamimi-san? Yes, what is this, Naruhodo-san? I'm really starting to wish we'd made my alias Ryotaro Susato. Please tell the court why exactly you are present at the bathing spot with the victim in the first place, and why you were alone with her. Oh, well, no, that's not true. It wasn't like that at all. There were other people present, a detective who was guarding Miss Brett for starters. I was just asked to accompany Miss Brett as a companion, that's all.
But let us be clear. At the moment of her death, you were alone together with the victim in the hut. You and no one else.
But
The truth is, there is only one reason why this young woman accompanied Miss Brett on her bathing sojourn. It was the accused's last chance to take the victim's life.
no,
Because, as we know, the following day would see Miss Brett extradited to the British authorities in Shanghai. And the accused would never have an opportunity to dispatch her again.
kindly refrain from conjecture, counsel.
The prosecution counsel seems to enjoy using provocative tricks like that. But for now at least, we need to assemble more facts. Try not to let him goad you.
Oh dear, this is really terrifying. But father is right. We need more information. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about the bathing spot. If I may, Prosecutor Ouchie.
What do you want, you fresh-faced young yokel student?
I wonder, could you explain, please? You mentioned a bathing spot.
My apologies. Clearly my modernity has confused the poor country bumpkin's simple mind. Bathing spots are the very latest trend in health practices from the West. We are told that bathing in the water of the ocean is creative, therapeutic, and excellent for the skins.
No, that's not what I meant. I was referring to the fact that Miss Brett had, to all intents and purposes, been found guilty of murder. Why would a known criminal have been relaxing by the sea?
For old time's sake, I believe.
Sorry?
Miss Brett was... Oh, for old time's sake, I believe. Miss Brett was to depart for Shanghai the following day. Her final wish, as it were, was to enjoy a day at our country's wonderful coast. And the British Embassy put extreme pressure on our government to comply.
But on what grounds would we agree to such a request?
Because, as usual, our government is unable to stand up to foreign powers. In matters of diplomacy, it seems we don't even have the courage to decline the whims of a non-criminal.
Don't look at me, Professor! It was the government who granted permission, not I. In any case, it was decided that with a dedicated detective on duty, nothing could go wrong.
But in fact, a murder took place.
I said don't look at me! It was that young student girl who did it, not I.
No one has proved that yet.
I wouldn't provoke the man if you don't need to.
I believe we all have a clear picture of the incident now.
Despite her guilt being determined 9 months ago, Miss Brett managed to avoid incarceration, instead continuing her research work at the university. Obviously, over that period, she and Rei would have encountered each other on a number of occasions.
Seeing the murderer of the mentor for whom she had such great respect enjoying such undeserved liberty.
Yes, even it was only temporary until Miss Brett's extradition to Shanghai. You can hardly blame Rei for her feelings of anger and resentment. Poor Rei.
So, Your Excellency, if you'd be so kind as to peruse this exhibit, a photographic print that shows the scene of the crime immediately following the grim incident.
Yes, thank you, Counsel. A tragic image.
As you can clearly see, there is nowhere within the hut that anyone else could have hidden.
The court will accept this photographic print as evidence. As I understand it then, the victim and the defendant were alone inside the beach hut at the time. This is deeply troubling, I must say. The finger of guilt points firmly at the defendant.
Well, Your Excellency, naturally the prosecution has much more to its case.
But
We intend to prove the accused's appalling actions beyond all possible contention. To that end, I can confirm that we have multiple witnesses of the crime and damning evidence.
witnesses? But who?
One of whom, I might add, is a highly respected police detective. I assure you that this one of these witnesses will leave no room for doubt.
Very well then, Counsel. Bring forth your witnesses.
I, Takatsushi Achi, have been waiting for this moment.
Sorry.
Oh yes, I haven't forgotten. That trial 9 months ago, here in this very courthouse, when that irreverent little student boy utterly humiliated me. Arg! Rinosuke Naruto!
What? Yeah?
This insult to the Aochi family name will never be forgotten!
You've become conceited with age, Counsel, but the old have to stand aside and make way for the new. It's the way of the world. May you never forget that.
Sure.
Hoo.
Ah. Strike the head of a samurai whose top knot has been cut, and the bell of cultural enlightenment tolls. Yes, on that fateful day, my former self died.
The start of your own mini Meiji revolution. Are you modernizing as well, Counsel? Are you modernizing as well, Counsel?
Silence! Since I swore revenge back then, there has been a minor miracle atop my head. Observe the Aochi growth. You see? You see the seed of hope sprouting forth from the barren expanse of my crown?
I think that tiny growth is trying to tell me something. I'm afraid I can't really see. Where is the hope exactly?
I said silence! Today I face another yokel student of the Naruhodo clan. Well, I will vanquish you, and my victory will be fertilizer for the seed of hope atop my head. You have been warned. With that, the prosecution calls the witnesses to the stand.
It looks like the stakes are high on both sides in this trial. The prosecution and defense each has much to lose.
A haircut is hardly comparable to Ryu's life. What?
Witnesses, please state your names and occupation for the court.
Chief Inspector Satoru Ozanaga, Imperial Police Bureau. I am in disguise, obviously, so I can go undetected.
And I am, well, the next big thing in books, An author renowned throughout the capital, in fact. Yes. Soon to be sold out, the satirical I'm a Cat, a sensational success by Suseki Natsume.
Oh my goodness.
Struggling student from the provinces, please. You needn't be in awe of me.
I needn't?
It's only natural that you'd feel nervous in my presence. But all of you, please, relax. Call me Soseki, even.
Yes. What on earth is Suseki-san doing here?
Try to care for you, Susato. That author fellow knows you from your time in London, doesn't he? If he exposes you for who you really are, this will be over before it's begun.
Yes. Yes, of course. I know. I presume Suseki-san won't have forgotten about me. I could certainly never forget him. Although he does seem to have changed somewhat in the 6 months or so that it's been since I last saw him. And as for Inspector Hazanaga, that amazing outfit is hard to believe. Do I have something on my face? Well, your glasses for one, although they don't seem to be helping you see. Thank goodness he hasn't recognized me either. Ah, I suppose it's just disguise, is it? I thought that appearing here in the clothes I was wearing at the time would make for a more faithful testimony. It is my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Well, I can appreciate why an Imperial Police Bureau detective might have been present. But what business did a writer such as yourself have being at the scene, Soseki-san?
Well, you see, I had been asked that day to give a lecture on the morning of the incident in the Imperial Yume University's Grand Lecture Hall, no less.
At Yume University?
After the lecture, I had a very pleasant conversation with a researcher from the Medical Science Department. The professor over there, in fact.
With Professor Mikotoba?
Yes, that's right. It was arranged by one of the newspapers. They wanted some story or hour about 2 former students who'd studied in Great Britain.
Of course, being a renowned author, the press never left me alone. They secretly spy, snapshots, scribble stories, and scupper my privacy. As you can see, the conversation was written up in this newspaper here. Read it at your leisure, my provisional struggling student friend. I have plenty of copies.
Thank you very much. He practically threw that paper at me.
Anyway, following my interview with the professor, the lady in question appeared and made a very unexpected announcement. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. Those were her words.
As I explained before, Miss Brett was never taken into custody. She continued to work in my laboratory under strict surveillance, of course.
At which utterance, the university immediately contacted the government to seek guidance. And the response was, permit Miss Brett to go as long as a detective accompanies her.
That detective I am at liberty to divulge was me, Chief Inspector Satoru Hazanaga.
Thereby the entire party departed cordially for the seaside, it seems.
It was extremely challenging to clear all other members of the public from the vicinity of the beach. But fortunately, I am at peak physical fitness at the moment, so I was able to carry out my duty flawlessly. Oh my, Inspector, you... Well, you do have something on your face now. Ah, how unsightly. I do apologize. Does that mean that you went to the beach too, Father?
No, fortunately I had to work to finish off her. But unfortunately, of course, it meant that as my assistant, Rei was invited to take my place.
Of course, being a renowned author, I didn't like to decline the invitation. But if only I had, I'd never have seen that awful sight. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret.
Very well. I must now ask you to present your formal testimony to the court. You will give an account of all that you witnessed on your impromptu excursion to the coast.
Of course, Your Excellency.
Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret,
Okay. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise.
I just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me.
I ran into the beach hut at once, where I found the pair in question.
Yes. That young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand, as she stabbed wildly.
I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times.
Indeed, it does appear from this testimony that both witnesses here present saw it, the very moment of this heinous crime. What?
Now, if you'll recall, I promised evidence as well. What phrase did I use again? Ah, yes, that was it. Damning evidence.
What have you there, Consul? A so-called fountain pen, is it?
Correct, Your Excellency. I have found it at the scene while I was examining the body. It appears that in her entire moments, with her final ounce of strength, the victim clutched a piece of evidence that would positively identify her killer.
What?
Your Excellency, if you would cast your eyes over the photographic print of the crime scene once more.
Ah, goodness me! Yes, sir, the victim is clearly grasping something quite deliberately there in her hand.
That's right, the fountain pen. And if you would kindly examine the pen, Your Excellency.
The owner's initials have been engraved onto the ebonite barrel. R.M. Rei Membami. The initials of the defendant. No. This fountain pen will be admitted immediately as critical evidence.
So, have I admitted anything? Decisive testimony and damning evidence. There's a bright blue sky outside the courthouse today. Perfect weather to ascribe guilt, I feel.
I don't understand. The prosecutor Ouchie of 9 months ago had none of this man's poise. Counsel for the defense, you may begin your cross-examination now. Naruhodo-san. Naruhodo. That means...
Oh, yes, me.
Is there another Naruhodo in my courtroom?
Actually, there isn't even a single Naruhodo in your courtroom.
Cousin Ryotaro, pull yourself together, please.
Alright, I've seen this countless times as a judicial assistant. Find inconsistencies in the witnesses' testimonies to prove that they're lying somehow. That is all there is to it. That is how a real lawyer would handle a cross-examination. So let's see what I can do. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise. Alright, first of all, let's examine the evidence. Okay, sure. The fuck? Okay. Oh, I can't examine stuff? Okay. I guess we'll have to do with that then. Or maybe we'll have to learn it. In that jaunty disguise? Correct. Wait, no. I mean, it wasn't the first time I've worn the swimsuit for a dip in the ocean. It's tried and tested. Do what must be done to keep the Englishwoman under surveillance. Those were my orders that day. And this tried and tested outfit was the answer. Being able to blend flawlessly into a crowd is an important part of a detective's job. I submerged myself in the salty water, leaving Mr. Turtle floating inconspicuously on the surface. Mr. Turtle loves the water. But there was no need for you to blend into the background on this assignment, really, was there?
If that made you late to having on the scene, I think perhaps you had your priorities wrong.
Perhaps I shouldn't pursue this line of questioning any further at the moment. I just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me. Ah, you're describing the victim's scream, presumably, Susaki-san? In more literary terms, you might say it was a scream that could have pierced the heavens. Kia! Or the like. Of course, that's just a metaphor. We renowned authors are wont to describe things so. Susaki-san, wasn't it at all like this in England? Anyway, I spun around at the noise and the beach hut immediately fell under my gaze. Yes, the beach hut. The area is popular with government ministers. Many have seaside retreats there for rest and recuperation. Locals are prohibited from entering the area, so it's always very quiet. The beach hut is simple structure, erected as a place for people to change or take refuge from the sun. Although the Englishwoman commandeered the hut for herself, which meant that I was forced to change it to my swimwear on the sand. Ah, I imagine that was rather embarrassing for you. Well, anyway, I tossed the crab aside and headed for the beach hut at a run. Or, in more literary terms, I decrabbed and beetled off hutwise. I ran into the beach hut at once, where I found the pair in question.
Hold it!
Wait, by pair you don't mean to say, but how could that be? No, you must understand. Obviously, I mean the victim and the defendant. Rei Membami son. Oh, it would have been helpful if you could have just said that from the outset. If you jump to conclusions, you have to expect to fall flat on your face sometimes.
Dear me, pinning your hopes on such an outside chance. Foolish. Very foolish.
It really was an outside chance. I just wish I'd realized that before I said something silly.
So, Inspector, why don't you tell the court how exactly you found the aforementioned pair in the hut?
Well, it was a sorry sight, a really grisly scene. I parted the Norran curtain hanging in the doorway and stepped inside, only to see the defendant leaning menacingly over the lifeless body of the victim sprawled on the sand. My glance was very nearly cracked at the ominous sight that met my eyes.
How thoroughly appalling.
He doesn't appear to be lying here. Well, Susaki-san, can you confirm what Inspector Hazanaga is saying? I wonder.
You'd like a literary man's opinion? Literary man's opinion? Yes. That young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand, as she stabbed wildly.
Hold it!
Stabbed widely. You actually saw her do it?
Oh, indeed. The terrible spectre, the terrible inspector, the bloody torrent, the author's torment.
Eek. Every sight and every sound is still carved in my melancholy memory. That was my impression, at least, as a future literary sensation.
Counsel, what on earth was that shrill, effeminate scream?
Oh, no. What are you insinuating? I am as manly as a Japanese man as you.
I wonder if I might interject here, Sosake-san. Something you said is troubling me. That was in my impression, were your words just now, I believe.
So do you mean to say you're not confident that you really did see what you have described?
No! Yes. I know what I saw. My ears didn't see me when I heard that scream. Hence, my eyes didn't see me either. I could describe everything I saw vividly. I could publish it all in tomorrow's newspaper serial. It sounds as though the next installment of I Am a Cat may take a macabre turn.
I think this is a fool's errand. The more we press your author friend on what he saw, the more entrenched he's going to become.
Oh dear, how awkward. I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times. She was stabbed multiple times? How can he be sure of that? Very simply, from the blood on the blade. The blood? When I entered the hut, I saw the defendant holding the blade raised up in the air.
Yes, that's right. I saw it too.
Oh. And I noted that there was blood on the blade already at that point. In other words, the victim had already been stabbed at least once by the time I arrived on the scene.
Yes, that's right. I saw it too.
And the victim was already holding the defendant's fountain pen in her hand too. All of which means I can be sure the victim did not die instantly.
Yes, right. Saw it too.
Maybe a year in London was too much for him. He sounds like he's forgotten how to speak Japanese.
The logic of your argument is sound at least.
Well, as I said, it is my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Perhaps it should have been your guiding principle to protect the victim flawlessly? That is just my personal opinion, of course.
Counsel, you refrain from mocking the witness.
Oh no, I just have so many thoughts whirling around in my head. It's all I can do to stand here, wide-eyed and mute.
Goodness, my dear, you really must try to calm down.
But how am I supposed to find an inconsistency in what these two gentlemen are saying? I don't see why either of them would have any reason to lie.
What you must remember, I think, is that these witnesses may inadvertently lie at times. For various reasons. A misunderstanding, a mistaken observation, a delusion, even.
Ah, a delusion.
What's important is that we determine the truth, and there's only one sure way to do that.
Yes, with evidence, of course.
Spoken like a true judicial assistant. During witness testimony, you could use a writer bumper to pick a piece of evidence to present for consideration. So you need to listen carefully to each statement and compare what's said to the details in the court record. If you find some conflicting information, that may be the inconsistency you're looking for.
Yes, it's all about inconsistencies.
Once you have identified the witness's statement that appears to conflict with a piece of evidence, present the evidence to the witness with why, and the way ahead will present itself to you, I am sure.
Yes. Alright then. I'll consider the details of all the evidence in the court record against each statement to find an inconsistency. I hope I'm up to the task.
Don't forget that you can have the witnesses repeat their statements as many times as you like. Everyone has to start at the beginning, remember? So those wide eyes are quite forgivable. And besides, there is no one else to defend the poor girl.
You're right. I need to listen to the testimony again from the start. Nope, don't need to. I already know what to present. There we go. With that accusatory cry that just welled up from deep inside me, I think I finally understand. Every time Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san have stood here at this bench, the stakes have been very, very high indeed.
What's the meaning of that menacing pose, Counsel?
I'd like the witness to clarify something for me.
Who? What? Where? When? How?
Not you, Sasaki-san. This query is directed at Inspector Hazunaga. But at me. In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times.
Yes, that's right. As I said, when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon.
And yet, that cannot be.
What?
Get to the point, please, Counsel.
In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. Oh. In other words, Inspector Hazunaga's testimony is clearly flawed. And Sasaki-san,
Me?
you claim to have seen Membami-san in the throes of stabbing the victim.
Yes, I did. Wildly.
But both you and the inspector confirmed the same point, that there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding.
Yes, and?
It's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once. Therefore, there's no way there could have been blood on the knife if that single stabbing hadn't already occurred.
True.
Then what exactly is your contention, Counsel? Are you even going to tell us?
Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Sasaki-san in fact saw was not the moment the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant in fact withdrew the blade from the victim's body.
That can't be.
Excellent work, Susato. You exploded at them without objection and then proceeded to put them apart systematically.
Oh.
Tisha. Well, this takes me back.
But
yes, I seem to remember your cousin stage a scene much like this in that trial 9 months ago. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection attempting to steal the show.
You're right. There were certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who has only half a head of hair.
Slander! My head is quite adequately dressed. In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing and multiple wounds, it makes not a jot of difference.
what? Why not?
Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was the fatal blow. And it was that moment, just as she withdrawn the blade ready for her next strike, that the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood because the accuser had already stabbed the victim. Oh. All you have successfully shown with your little display is that the mustached author is prone to moments of extravagance.
I am in agreement with the prosecution. If the defendant was seen wielding the blade at all, that is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade...
Then we are back where we started.
Sorry.
Consider this, young yokel boy. If the Sun girl is innocent as you claim, then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim, and with a demon's cold-blooded composure, too? The prosecution demands an explanation, and it had better be good.
Why did Rei pull out the knife?
Ah, yes, going for the jugular.
What does father mean by that?
Let the court hear your answer then, counsel.
The truth is, I don't really know. But I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so she could... yeah, let's go for that. Well, this is only one possible answer, but... Could it have been so she could stab the victim again?
Pardon?
Isn't there a saying, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him, the left also?
Realtor, what are you saying? Or rather, what are you doing? Do you realize what a hole you're digging?
It must be the pressure of being here. I'm starting to say things I don't mean.
Quite a slap in the face for the woman you represent. You yokels and your heavy-handed ways.
No, I didn't. That was just an example. A mere musing. I didn't mean that's what happened.
I suggest you take a moment to consider your answer next time, before you speak, counsel.
Yes, Your Excellency. Thank you for allowing me another chance. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so she could. According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant.
That's correct. It's thought she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury.
Indeed, giving her the time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates her killer.
The point is, being a medical research assistant, Membami-san was compelled to act when faced with the wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life.
Tush! Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem this is the best we can expect of this young yokel.
Indeed.
Is it just me, or does it suddenly feel much colder in here?
Your Excellency, if I may,
Speak, witness.
I would like another opportunity to testify in respect to the slipshod assertion just put forth by the yokel defense counsel, I mean.
Slipshod?
Tush! An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not one iota of common sense.
Very well, Inspector. I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the defense counsel's assertion.
Yes, sir. I will do so flawlessly.
Is he trying to say that pulling the knife out would only hasten her death, not slow it down?
Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor.
Is what you just said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily?
Yes. Think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until a doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed.
I see.
Ha! This is why yokels should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it.
Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled a blade out of a wound, so...
Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit.
Father, is it true what they're telling me?
Yes, it's basic remedy of knowledge from the Dukes. Rei would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways.
But then, why would Rei have done it? Could she have pulled that knife out in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett?
I don't know.
Rei never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but... could my friend actually have?
Susato!
Yes?
Pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here.
Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination. Oh, yes, Your Excellency. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my education immediately afterwards. I understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. Alright. The second cross-examination.
Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of what I could present to what statement. Let's continue.
Hold it!
You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean that if you use due care and attention it would be alright?
I wouldn't have thought this needed spelling out, really, but... the blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it and a serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt is made to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it.
Oh, well, thank you for such a thorough explanation.
You see, Counsel, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath.
Back to the witness testimony, please.
That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know.
Hold it!
In that case, there's an obvious explanation here.
Which is?
Clearly, the defendant, Rei Membami-san, does not possess an ounce of sense.
What do you think about that, Professor Mikotoba?
I'm not so sure that you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense.
Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer.
I don't know, young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it.
Careful, Counsel. A lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing.
Oh dear, that recoiled on me rather badly.
That's life, I'm afraid. A lesson everyone must learn.
Hopefully you can see now that this is really basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Membami-san would have certainly been aware of it. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim.
But the defendant had suddenly encountered somebody she knew lying on the ground bleeding to death. The sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently.
I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this. The woman is a medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally.
Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it?
Oh dear, you have a lot to learn about women. Only a small-minded man could have such bigoted views.
Oh dear, perhaps I'm letting my male persona take a hold a little too much.
Well, have you managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim.
Whatever the motive, it just isn't in Membami-san's nature to do something so awful.
But she had both motive and opportunity. That's very hard to argue against.
But you don't know the defendant.
And you, counsel, do not appear to know the law.
But
Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings.
With this fledgling to defend her, I would almost say I pity the accused.
so do I. Inspector, you will reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please.
Ah, yes, Miss Brett was in many ways the sworn enemy of Membami-san. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor.
Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Membami-san's talent and offered her the position of assistant despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him.
Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual.
Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with the opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Membami-san's abilities.
Clearly the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point.
This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. If Rei knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it.
Susato, it's at times like this when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals.
The fundamentals?
Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it?
Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already.
I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine it in greater detail, too. I realize this is your first time playing the role of a royal in the courtroom. So if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need to only ask. I'll do my very best to help.
Examine the evidence in the court record. It is an idea, certainly. What should I do? Sure, why not? Yes, Father. Spartan guidance is what I need.
I think that might be overdoing it slightly, but... Very well, so open the court record first of all with red bumper. Now, let's take a look at the fountain pen, which was submitted as evidence most recently. Simply press A to examine it further. That's all there is to it.
I tried doing that earlier. Yes, the initials RM. There they are, clearly engraved on the barrel.
By using the red stick, you can look at the piece of evidence from all angles. You should have a good look at everything to make sure you haven't missed any clues.
Yes, I will. I just need to rotate the pen with the right stick and watch closely for anything out of the ordinary then. Alright. What's the symbol? There is some sort of emblem here, look. But it isn't a Yume University one.
It must belong to some other organization, I suppose. Business of some kind. But that would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Rei.
Interesting. Alright. I don't think we're done examining here, are we? Let's open the pen. If we take off the pen's lid... Is there gonna be blood on it? Oh. Now let's unscrew the barrel, shall we? This must be the little reservoir that holds the ink.
Yes, you fill it by drawing ink from a bottle up through the nib.
Is something wrong, Father?
Just that there doesn't actually appear to be ink in there, that's all.
Oh yes, you're right. It's pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. Okay, that's interesting. It's very interesting. Let's examine the initials. The RM initials are very clearly engraved here.
And the fact that Miss Brett was clinging to this pet in her dying moment is very clearly a message too.
To identify her killer, you mean?
I don't think there can be any doubt that this is a key piece of evidence in this case.
Right. But now we know that the RM doesn't stand for Remember Me. So, okay. Ah, I can examine this now. Okay. Raucous England returnees tell all. This is the interview with you and Susaki-san, is it, Father? It looks as though it was quite an exchange.
Yes, he became a little over-animated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment his hand karate chopped me on the neck.
I do hope you weren't hurt. Alright. What else can we find here? This is the newspaper from Susaki-san. There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive, deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. From Yume's Medical Research? Father, isn't that your lab?
What the? Let me see that. The poison has been stolen?
It's this morning's paper that Susaki-san gave us. Are you saying you didn't know?
As embarrassing as that is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I have not heard any such thing. Where else could a reporter have gleaned his information?
Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning the story in our paper this morning, was there?
It's a highly toxic poison we've been working on in the strictest confidence. I'd put Rei in charge of the project.
Rei? She was managing it?
If what's written here is true, it means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, the details were leaked somehow.
I don't believe it.
We need to read this article very carefully.
Can we read the article very carefully? No. They just did that by themselves. Oh! Following a lecture at Yume by Sasaki Natsume on the 11th of August, it's come to light that a very disturbing incident took place. A deadly poison being secretly developed in the university's forensic science laboratory was stolen. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. Current methods cannot detect the newly developed chemical. The university would have to be consulted. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with acute contractions of the pupils prior to death. The resistance of this toxin is apparently a new synthesis of alkaloids rumored to have been commissioned by the military. Okay. So she got poisoned by the pen, and then someone stabbed the body after it was dead to disguise the cause of death, just like 9 months ago. Yeah. She was holding the pen because it was the true murder weapon, not the knife. Alright then. Okay. There we go. Extreme meiosis, pupil constrictions. Damn. Okay. Alright. But how can we use any of this now? Cause capability. Okay, so we go here and then we give him the good reason. Yeah. There we go. No, there is one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound.
What? The yokel not only has a poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you've identified?
It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at the Imperial Yume unit.
The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance in this case.
But
Prosecutor Archie, you will let the defense speak.
But in a newspaper article, the court cannot rely on the kind of the hearsay these wretched publications carry.
Counsel for the defense, I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion.
Your Excellency!
yes, of course. Thank you. Rei would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained in the article where it says... let's see. I'm thinking page 2. Or the effects. Maybe she noticed the effects? Let's try going for this one. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body on a knife laced with the poison, it is rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting if the knife was used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Membami-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible? Yes, the truth is, it was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body. No, that's not what I was going with this, but... What?
Objection!
This is complete and utter nonsense!
Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility.
Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document.
Well, that is because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking hold.
Oh, please, this is clearly desperation. The weasel's last breaking of wind. Poison has nothing to do whatsoever with this case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable anyway.
In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had strong reason for her suspicions then, or the argument makes no sense.
Exactly! Well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, Yoko?
Why did Rei suspect the stolen poison was involved? If you want grounds, I'll give you grounds.
What?
You can't possibly.
From your expression, Castle, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in a modern justice system. The court demands evidence.
Yes, Your Excellency. I am well aware of that. I have seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey.
In that case, Castle, you will present the proof to the court now. What evidence demonstrates a clear link between this case and the poison in the newspaper article?
Maybe it's too early for the pen. Let's go with this. I would ask the court to refer to the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction was observed in the victim. But clearly, being a yoku with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea. So please, do tell me. Presumably, the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death.
Well,
Under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead, that's most certainly unusual, yes.
what are you doing, you local detective?
In the newspaper article, there is the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death.
What?
If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely,
Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt.
Prosecutor Ouchie, I think you'll agree, this is very compelling evidence.
You, Yoko student, Yoko professor!
I believe the defense has excellently demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions.
No.
Eugene Mikotoba? Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in this newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I am afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. Do you mean to tell the court that the reports of the theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say.
Ha! Listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft of secret state research from his own workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper.
I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision.
Father,
Tch, a pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control of your students, rather than allowing them off on killing sprees.
that is totally unfounded. None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault.
Mami-san, you stand accused here. Octopuses like this will not be tolerated.
But it was me. I was the one who noticed that the poison we were developing had been stolen that day.
What?
So you knew? I had been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day that the professor and Susaki-san were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was.
Why didn't you let me know immediately?
I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So I decided I'd try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was. The thief? You don't mean? Yes, of course. It was that dainty Englishwoman. Miss Giselle Brett? That's why I decided to join the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? And then she suddenly got to her feet before falling to her knees in front of me and then collapsing on the floor. But that's when I saw the knife on her back. I couldn't understand what had just happened. And then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes had shrunk to tiny pinpoints.
I don't believe it.
In other words, you realized that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison. My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips whilst I'd been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. On the blade of the knife in her back. And this train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade. Yes, if the amount that had entered her bloodstream was small enough, she might still have a chance. That's what I hoped. Really, I'm so sorry for staying silent on this time.
Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you confessed in the end.
Thank you, Excellency. It's barely perceptible, but I do think the balance has shifted a little here in this courtroom now.
Objection!
Your Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Membami-san, if that is the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed?
Well,
You have no answer, because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge.
Objection!
but you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you?
Oh, I have evidence, and it is very much conclusive.
But what is the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated for a moment there. I'm almost sure of it.
You will produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Archie.
Perhaps some praise is due, young Yogel student.
What?
I'd imagine there would be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you brought this on yourself.
What the? Could a
more damning shot exist? The cruelty in the air on that beach is almost palpable. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature, for it shows the precise moment that Membami-san plunged her dagger into the victim's back.
No, that's not true. No. I don't believe it. We already said that she was pulling the knife out, not in.
Order! Counsel for the defense, was it you who was responsible for that shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom?
Perhaps his voice is yet to break. These yokels are slow of mind and slow to mature.
I'll show you who's so immature.
Careful now. Susato is starting to show her face here. It is often said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will accept this extremely cogent photographic print as evidence.
I can't believe he has had a photograph like that up his sleeve the entire time. It's such a stark image, I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute, I don't understand. How did you... I mean, who took the photograph? Rei.
Objection!
That's of no importance here. Stop trying to divert attention.
Oh,
Objection!
that's an absurd thing to say. It is crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony.
Ah!
I will uphold the defense's demand.
The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once.
Well, I'm afraid I can't do that.
Pardon?
You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday. But there was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of the print is unknown.
Goodness,
Are we to understand then, counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph has the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believe it fit for submission as evidence in the Supreme Court?
when you first produced that print before, I noticed that you hesitated for a brief moment. Because you knew that it wasn't completely reliable evidence, didn't you?
Silence, you yokel student and blabbering professor. What matters is the plain truth that this print so eloquently expresses.
But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment the knife was plunged into the victim's back, but...
The moment it was withdrawn? Don't waste this court's time with your ramblings.
Indeed, without a knowledge of who produced his print,
we have no means of verifying the claim, and the scene it captures without doubt the most compelling evidence presented to the court. If the defense is unable to shed any further light on the matter, I believe the conclusion is clear. Oh no.
Susato, this is the time for you to fight. If what you have established so far is true, then there can be no doubt. This photograph shows the moment that Rei withdrew the blade from the victim.
But yes, we just need to prove that somehow.
Tush! You'll have plenty of time to rue your defeat on the slow train back to the provinces. And to rue the day you came up against Takatsushi Ouchi in a court of law.
If I can determine who took this photograph, then the trial is going to come to an end. There must be a clue somewhere. There must be some way of working out who took it.
Well, Counsel,
Your Excellency, the burning question is who took that photograph, and the truth is, I don't know. No, if I give up now, I'll never be able to look Rei in the eyes again.
Susato, you need to steel yourself and summon your best argument.
I'll do my best. This isn't about whether I can or can't come up with the answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took this dramatic photographic print is, I assure you, something the defense can and will reveal.
What? No, you can't possibly. But as you so boldly claim that you can, please do enlighten us.
Unfortunately, I'm unable to present a name.
How utterly underwhelming. Did you really believe you could...
However, I am able to present evidence. The defense has a piece of evidence that reveals important details about the photographer's identity.
What?
Very well then, Counsel. Present your proof to the court. Which piece of evidence do you claim reveals something about the identity of the mystery photographer.
The piece of evidence in question is this.
I'm afraid, Counsel, that when presenting evidence you must learn to temper those rather nervous eyes. I'm obliged to penalize you for the lack of focus in both your eyes and your answer.
Would you care to squeeze your head in your hands again, Counsel? To punish yourself for presenting such utterly irrelevant evidence?
I'll squeeze my head as many times as it takes to win this trial. Your Excellency, may I?
You may present another piece of evidence, but no more squeezing, Counsel. Which piece of evidence do you claim reveals something about the identity of the mystery photographer?
Alright, what's going on here? Someone peeked in through the hut. And the people near the hut were Hazunaga and Suseki. Suseki didn't see the stabbing, he heard it, and Hazunaga was in salt water pretending to be a turtle. So it can't be either of them. So what would be the clue? The poison thief? The piece of evidence in question is this.
I'm afraid, Counsel.
I don't know. What else could it be? Did I not examine the pen fully yet? No. My logic was that we don't know who this pen belongs to, and whoever it belongs to was there on the scene taking the photograph. But that didn't work, so poison article? No. The picture itself? No. A crime scene? Photo? Oh. But I mean... Oh. Let me try this first. The piece of evidence question is this. Oh God. And just like that, I'm down to one HP. Great. Okay. We'll save. This? The photograph is following him? Oh, come on. Really? Fine.
What is that? The newspaper again? Rakusa Inga de Returnees tell all.
It's not the headline that is relevant here, Your Excellency. It is the photograph. If you look at it closely, you'll notice that there are some white lines on the right-hand side.
Yes, indeed. They had already caught my eye as it happens.
Ha! What of it? A shadow of some kind, presumably, from the branches of a tree or the like.
There are no trees going inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you.
Now, if you look closely at this photograph... Oh... I didn't notice that at all.
Good gracious!
Yes, exactly the same pattern of lines is present on this photograph too.
Objection!
Well, that tells us nothing. Yeah, it's a shadow of some kind, definitely, from the branches of a tree.
There wouldn't be any trees growing inside a hut at the beach, Counsel.
What's quite remarkable about it is that the two patterns are absolutely identical. How could such an extraordinary similarity have transpired?
The curious matching pattern that appears on both photographic prints is a result of... I'm not gonna risk anything. I'll just go straight now. I can't risk losing any more points. Obviously, it must be due to a problem with the camera used to take the photographs.
With the photographic device?
Yes, we can confidently say that the camera's lens must be scratched, and that the scratched lens causes unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device.
In short, the two photographs under consideration here were taken with the same camera.
But there must be hundreds of such a camera device to be in here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of this particular one.
Objection!
I think you're forgetting, Prosecutor Ouchie, that one of the photographs featured in a newspaper article.
A newspaper?
That's right. The author of that article is the mystery witness to this crime.
What?
Menremu, what? Who said that? Oh.
I see why you are called a raucous English Tony.
What did he yell? He yelled, "Many me more."
Meeny, miny, mo! What are you yelling about? You've already testified. It's meeny, miny, mo, I tell you. Meeny, mo. Meeny, me, moo. Meeny, me, moo. Me, me, mo!
Suseki-san, what was that? Did you say, "Meeny, me, me, moo"?
Ever since I returned to Japan, a reporter from the Shoyu News has been hounding me, following my every move. A reporter by the name of Reitan Mini Mimo. Yes, hounding me from dawn till dusk.
Now that he mentions it,
The secret spy, snapshots, stupid stories, and scrapper my privacy.
could that same reporter be?
A camera to the left of him, a notebook to the right. There I am, stuck in the middle with Reitan Mini Mo.
So you're saying that this picture was taken by...
By Mini Mimo, yes, my lord, your excellency, Esquire.
Officer, find this newspaper reporter at once and bring him to my courtroom. We will adjourn for a short recess in the meantime.
Oh, yes, your excellency.
As you say, your excellency.
And on one more thing. I want this knife, the murder weapon, examined for traces of poison. You will solicit the assistance of the Imperial University's medical department for the task. Understood?
Mini Mimo. To be continued. Goodbye.